Hello, everybody. C. Ray Brower here with your perfect home, and I got Bill Conley from Powur, and he's going to go over how he got into solar and a whole bunch about solar just coming up next. And we're back. How's it going today, Bill?
Wow, great. I love that intro there, C. Ray.
Well, thank you so much. Thank
Very
you so much.
inspiring.
So, basically, nobody really on this channel knows you or anything about you. So let's start with where'd you go to school? No, I'm kidding. How is it that you ended up in solar? What was your background prior to solar?
Great. Well, I'll be as brief as possible. I'm a longtime Stocktonian. Came here in 1968 when at 8 years old. Went through school here. Went away to school to actually. I was going to go study law, and found that that wasn't what I wanted to do. And I came back to Stockton in 1982 to help run the family business. We were in the restaurant industry. We had a couple of places. Probably did restaurants for about 30 years. And we sold the last restaurant, which was Ye Old Hoosier Inn. For those of you in this area who know Stockton,
Wow.
we had that landmark restaurant, and thought I was going to be able to retire, but not so. I actually got swept up in the real estate craze and made a lot of money, and then lost a lot more money in the crash of 08, 09, and 10, I think. And so I was looking for something to do. I had a friend who had a solar company and actually was one of what we call a solar OG, had been in business since the early 90s doing solar and knew everything there was to know about it. And I asked him if I could have a job. He created something for me to be able to sell for him. And I learned about the industry in 2013. Sold for that company for about 5 or 6 years, and then moved on to another commercial solar company. So most of my experience was in commercial, medium to large scale solar installations, wineries, and in agricultural operations and industrial. So large systems. And a friend of mine who I had worked with in the last company left our company and was going to go start his own residential solar installation company, and decided after looking at Powur that maybe this was a better idea. So he got going and sent me some information. And at first I kind of poo-pooed it, but upon second look and a little deeper investigation, I said to myself, after looking at their program and their compensation plan, I said, if this thing is even half as good as it looks like it could be to me, I would be an idiot not to jump in. And so I did. In late 2020, I jumped in with both feet. I gave notice at my other job, which was kind of a cush 6-figure salaried position, and kind of jumped in head first with no safety net, and it was the best thing I ever did in my life. So Powur is technically it's an online technology platform, and we are similar. I think you could probably relate it to Uber. What Uber did to the taxi industry, Powur has done to solar, insofar as we are a decentralized platform, and we are currently in about 23 different states. So I do solar all over the country, right from the comfort of my home office here. I show people how to save money with solar, and then I also teach other people how to get involved with the industry. So I teach others how to do this.
Very nice. Very nice. So from restaurant Hoosier Inn, anybody that's from Stockton definitely remembers the Hoosier Inn. And you came to California at 8. I came to California in 1968 at 12. So that tells us I must be about 4 years older than you.
Yes, yes.
So, can you explain the importance of solar energy and how it's going to contribute to a sustainable future?
Yeah, I'm happy to do that. C. Ray, solar was initially kind of for the fringe folks who said, hey, there's a new technology here. There's a way to make power from the sun. How about if we harness that power? So in the early days, it was not only expensive, but kind of rare that people were going solar. However, as the years have gone on, the technology's improved and the cost of electricity has gone up. It has become more and more viable to the point where now it is not a question of if you're going to get solar. It's a question of when you're going to get solar, because the grid, let's face it, is about 150 years old across the United States. It is in need of great repair, and there's every indication to point to the fact that people are going to be using more and more electricity as we move into electric vehicles, as people are getting away from fossil fuels and going to electric stoves, for example, electric heat and air. So all those things are going to put more pressure on the grid, which can't handle it to begin with. So solar is a great option to have a different mode of providing electricity. It's free as long as God continues to shine on us on a daily basis. We get free power from the sun, and it is a fact. I think it is a fact that more power, C. Ray, is generated by the sun in 1 hour than that we use as a world in one entire year. So think about that and think about how much we really have as access from the sun for electricity. And we are now able to harness that and put it on rooftops, which is not taking up any extra space. It's decentralizing the power from centralized utilities and allowing the people to make the power instead of the utilities as monopolies to distribute it at their by their grace. I always ask people, how many utility companies did you interview before you chose your current company? In our case, locally here, primarily it's PG&E. So, and their obvious answer, and it's tongue in cheek. They say, well, I didn't interview anybody. I didn't have a choice, and that's exactly the issue and the problem. And for us, the solution. They don't have a choice. We offer them a choice. It generally, in 9 out of 10 cases, is going to save them a lot of money over the course of time.
Makes a ton of sense. Makes a ton of sense. I know the sun is producing a whole lot with fission, and it just is shining down on us approximately 12 hours a day. I mean, in the winter a lot less, in the summer a little bit more, unless you're right on the equator, and then you get pretty constant, 12 and 12.
Right.
Move to the North Pole and you have the midnight sun.
Yeah. Yes.
But
we're fortunate here.
Yeah, we are very fortunate here. Educating your clients, your potential clients, to the technical aspects of the system. How is that? How do you approach that with people? I mean, it's a kind of a complex system, basically an easy system, but a complex system. And as you said, you're tied into the grid. And of course, now we're on net metering 3, so that's a whole different subject. But we'll start with this one. How do you educate potential clients about the technical aspects of what they're doing?
Yeah, well, I think you want to go from the macro to the micro. And on a macro level, C. Ray, it's just a question of people right now not recognizing that they have a choice. They think that, well, I'm with the company that I'm with. I don't have any, I'm renting my power, and that's exactly, you're going to use electricity probably to the end of your days, right? Not anybody's going to say, I just decided to go electric free. So you're kind of stuck, and people don't recognize they have accepted that as just the status quo. Have to have electricity. I have to be with this company. They're going to raise the rates. I never signed a contract with them, but they're going to raise the rates whenever they want. And I don't know anybody. I've asked everybody I asked. Nobody can tell me that they've ever had their electric company lower their rates. But so they're not going to lower those rates, and they're going to continue to go up. and we're locked in as long as we're customers. So the way that I talk to people really is, if you had a choice and you could pay less and freeze the cost of your power, would you want to do that? Would that be a reasonable thing to consider? Particularly in the case of residential solar, there's lots of programs out there where you don't have to come up with any money out of pocket. So you can start without any expense on your part and essentially, quote unquote, pick a new company. That would be whoever your solar provider is. And either whether it's a loan or a lease, or in some cases, people that have the money can, instead of having it in their 401k at 3, 4, 5% interest, if they were to invest in a solar system to produce their own power, the internal rate of return in most cases, particularly here in California, is about 20 to 22% annually. So that's a pretty big return on a system that's going to guarantee you to lower your electric bill and give you an improvement on the asset value of your home. So whichever way you do it, as long as you're a homeowner and in the position to be able to get solar electricity, it does not make sense to at least not consider solar as an option. So, and then when we talk about the specifics, really it comes down to every home is different. There's no cookie cutter solution. So see, Ray, your house, even though you have a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 1,522 square foot house, your neighbor may have one identical to you. You probably, based on your habits versus their habits, are going to have a different energy profile. So it would not be right for me to say, well, I did Joe Blow's house next door to you, and he took 7.6 kilowatts of solar. I'm not going to suggest, presume, or even know that you're going to use 7.6 kilowatts of solar power. You may be using 9, or you may be very conservative and you don't turn your air on very much, and you may only need 5. So every home is unique. And for that reason, in our case, what we ask for from someone is, hey, would you send me a copy of your electric bill so I can look at your history? And with a year's worth of usage history, I can get a pretty clear idea of where somebody's been. Now, that doesn't assume that they're going to stay that way. For example, you may not have thought before now about an electric vehicle, but maybe you've got one on order. You're going to get a Mustang, or in my case, you might get a Lucid, which is the absolute best car I ever had in my life. But because of that, your electric usage might change, and we can calculate on the basis of future projections, either up or down. Maybe you have kids going away to college, for example, and that might lower the overall usage. So it might be a reason to say, hey, we're not going to build it as big. But we really try to become very customized on a per customer basis with respect to designing a system.
Well, that makes a ton of sense. I don't think any of us are ever really going to start using less electricity. And when you actually put solar on your house, and even if you've been conservative and you haven't run your air conditioner as much and what have you, now you had a $200 a month if you had a low PG&E bill. You had $200 a month, and all of a sudden now you've just got that what is it, $10 connection fee?
Yeah, generally speaking.
And so now you're only paying $10 for your electricity where you've been paying $200. It's on my roof. I can run the air conditioner more, and it's still only $10 there. So it always makes sense, I think, to overbuild, right?
You're absolutely right. It is a little bit of a psychological certainty that people with solar tend to use a little bit more electricity than without, and it's because of just what you said. And amazing how people alter their lifestyles, to the point of kind of even being Spartan about how they're functioning, right? For they may not turn that air conditioner on until it's 85 degrees, and they turn it on, and they literally suffer for partly because the utilities have told them, this is a limited. It just never ceases to amaze me how. What other product do you buy where if you consume more, they charge you more, right? In a traditional what do you call it? What kind of a a traditional economy, when you offer to buy more, they're going to charge you less, right? Because of volume.
Right.
The more you buy,
Yeah.
the lower your price should be, but not so with electricity. The more you buy, the higher the cost goes. And that's, first of all, absurd. So that's the first absurdity. The second is that they don't ever explain to you very, very clearly on your bill what you're being charged and how you're being charged. So those two things kind of keep people under a blanket of ignorance, and which is right. Another reason why it's kind of hard to get the idea of solar across to people, because they're being sort of fooled by the electric company. So right. that keeps them from using their power. So that when they get solar, they're likely to use more. You're exactly right. I will most always try to oversize the system by 10 to 15 or maybe even 20% to allow for a couple of factors. One is they're going to use some more. The second is that when they use their power in the late afternoon and evening, it costs more from the utility. And another one of their sneaky ways, they say that's when they have a higher demand, therefore they have to charge more. It's not true. It's to be able to get people who have solar to pay more during that time frame. But and now we have a new element that's come into play in California because of this NEM 3.0, where instead of using the grid or the electrical grid to be your battery, so to speak, when you produce extra power, it was, earlier would go to the grid and you'd get credit for that power. Now they're not giving you as much credit. They're giving you about a fifth of the value if you use them as a battery. So the recommendation now is to say have a few of your own batteries on site, so you can store your excess power in your battery and use that power later on when you need it and the sun's not up.
Right.
So
basically just like living off the grid. If you actually live out in the country and don't want to pay the $1,000 a pole or $10,000 a pole or whatever it is, depending on the terrain, for them to get power from their lines to you, you always have that option of being off the grid and had solar candles.
Well, that's the exact reason that my very first boss got into solar to begin with. He had a place out in Sutter Creek, and he went to PG&E, and he says, "How much will it cost to get power to my house?" And they said $250,000. So this was in 1994. That's a lot of money. He says, "Well, forget it, man. I'm going to go." And so that's how he got into solar. And he did a wind turbine and solar and batteries and a generator, and the place was entirely off grid.
Right.
And but in the marketplace today, if you're hooked up to a utility, the use of a battery now allows you to be closer to that off-grid status, where you save your own power in order to use it later and get full value, because it's, you're storing kilowatt hours of energy. And when you use those kilowatt hours of energy later in the evening, those are going to be more expensive. They're worth more money. So you're getting your full value for the power that you store.
Right.
Yeah.
And people don't also realize about we were talking about your Lucid and getting a Mustang or any EV, that PG&E does have two rates for charging your vehicle. If you get an EV, there's EV1 and EV2. And EV1 is where you get your best rate, but you can only charge from, I don't remember the hours, but it's late at night until early in the morning, and that's the only time you can charge your vehicle. Otherwise, you go on EV2 and the rate goes up, and it's considerably more.
Right.
It just, like you said, they've kind of got us over a barrel. When you were talking about batteries, how many batteries would a person need to be off the grid?
Well, and that's a phenomenal question, and it's one that is, again, very determinative based on an individual. When they use their power and how much they use would dictate absolutely how many batteries you need. And many people think, well, I have a battery, therefore I can just use my power. And a battery is only going to hold so much energy and so it's going to be the amount of power and then the length of time that you can use that power. Those are the two factors when you have a battery. So traditionally they kind of come in like 10 kilowatt amounts of increments of, a home battery for solar. So for every 10 kilowatts of power, you have a certain amount that you can go at any given time. So you can only pull so much, and then it's the range of power. So you could pull 5 kilowatts of power for 2 hours on a 10 kilowatt battery. You could pull 2.5 kilowatts hours for 4 hours. So you want to do something that will allow you to get through the night in the case of a battery in a power outage. But you wouldn't be electrifying all of your circuits. So for example, you probably wouldn't want to be electrifying your air conditioner in the case of an outage, even though you may need it, or you may need it for a little while, but it pulls so much power. In fact, I think the average HVAC system uses 40% of your electrical load in a given month. So, which is a high number. So you would, what you do with, generally speaking, with batteries, if you're using them for backup, there's two ways to go. One is you're using them for backup, or you're using them to provide just the power for when you need to feed back to the grid. So those are two different kind of examples. You can do both, but in the case of backup power, most people would do pretty well with 2 20 to 10 kW batteries backup, and that would be able to back up most of their home for most of the night. And then your solar the next day re-energizes both your daytime usage that you need, plus will recharge those batteries. So it's kind of like a 2-to-1. If you had 7 kilowatts of solar power, you'd want to have about 14 kilowatts of battery storage. So almost 2-to-1. That's a good way to figure it. And then some people will say, hey, I don't care about backup power because I never lose my power and it's very resilient and everything else. And so I just want to have that power available to feed back to my home system when the solar is not working. Okay, I still have a signal from the grid. And that's the thing with solar, is that unless you get a signal that the grid is on, your solar in most cases won't work unless you have a battery that has the software included to be able to make it act as a backup battery. So that's kind of getting into the weeds a little bit, and we don't really need to do that. But there's two ways to go with batteries. One is a less expensive way, and that's just to feed your system the excess power that you need to store because of NEM3, right? Because you can't use the grid anymore. They're giving you 1/5. If I gave you $1 and you gave me back 20 cents every time I gave you $1, it doesn't make much sense for me to be giving you dollars, right? It makes a lot of sense for you.
I mean, I understand the economics of NEM3 for them is because they used to give you what you paid, not what it cost them to generate. Now they're giving you at or less than what it costs them to generate back to you, so they're still making a profit where they weren't before. So I mean, I understand that pretty well. Maybe some other people haven't got that concept, but everybody needs to make some money. That's what we're all in business for. That's what the electric companies are there for. Unfortunately, things are changing. Things are changing for them, right? And they need to do what they need to do.
Well, and they really kind of shot themselves in the foot here, C-Ray, as far as that goes, because many people, given how far they went, in adjusting their side of things, many people will say, well, you know what? I'll get more batteries than I need to be able to fully disconnect. I mean, they technically still will be connected because you can't, by law, in many municipalities, you can't they won't let you disconnect.
Right.
But people will get enough solar and storage on site to essentially, give the finger to the utilities, right?
Right.
And they're going to do that out of spite because they, the economics have been made so difficult by them, and they didn't have to be. I mean, we had a lot of options when we were coming up to this change. They just went whole hog and said, nope, we're gonna do this. So I think they're gonna be suffering. They whether it's PG&E or Cal Edison or San Diego Gas and Electric or any of the other companies across the country that are going to follow suit. They're going to try to follow California's example. And this is the saddest part, is that it's gonna hurt the people that are most economically likely to suffer from this, right? They're going to be the ones that lose out because they can't afford to get enough batteries, and the people that have the money can do it, and they will do it, and so the utilities are going to lose out both ways.
Right. And unfortunately, electrifying the country and becoming green is going to do nothing but drive up that cost of electricity. Yeah. Because supply and demand, and they've already shown that it really isn't. They say it's supply and demand is why they charge you more when people are using more. They don't have enough supply, but there's a large demand. And as we electrify cars and everything else around us, there's going to be more demand. So those rates are going to go up. And of course, the insurance is not going to continue to pay them for burning down forests, right? So
absolutely, yes.
So I know while you're out selling and talking to people about solar, you come across a lot of objections. What are some of the common objections, and how do you overcome those objections?
Well, I think one of the chief objections, and it's just a surface response, almost a knee-jerk response, is it's too expensive, and that comes from a place, I hate to say it, but it comes from a place of ignorance, because I mean, how can it be too expensive when a person is not paying anything to begin with? They're saving out of the gate. They may see a price tag of the ultimate cost of the system over time, what it will cost, but that's only because they don't see the price tag of the utility saying that, yes, if you stay on our service, and I see this all the time, C-Ray, for example, all day long, I'll show a price comparison, a 25-year projection, and they'll be owing the utility $250,000 over the next 25 years, versus if they bought solar, it'd be $50,000. Whether they pay for it in cash, or they finance it, or they do a loan or a lease or whatever. And you say, well, correct me if I'm wrong, but my math says to me that $50,000 is a lot less than $250,000 any day of the week. Right. So what do you mean it's too expensive? Well, so that's one of the things is it's too expensive, and again, bless their heart. So it's my job to educate them about how they actually are already paying that money, and we're just showing them to redirect the money to a different source. Some people object on the basis of, well, it's ugly. Right. I've had a lot of people, it's ugly. Well, the solar panels of yesteryear were not the best looking, right? They were kind of blue with white stripes around them and everything. And they did kind of draw your eye to the panels, and they were a little bit shocking. Today's panels they're black on black with black frames. And in most cases, they either blend into a roof, or people so quickly become used to them that they don't even know they have solar panels. And I would ask somebody, for example, hey, how many vents do you have on your roof that you can see? And what color are those? And people immediately, they don't know because they don't look at their roof. And that's not what draws people to a house, as far as that goes. So that's maybe one of the responses. And most objections, I think, people, for the most part, that's not really their objection. They're not comfortable because somebody hasn't clearly explained to them what the value is and what they're going to avoid. We do have to project in solar. You do have to project into the future because it is very much about the future. And quite often, solar salespeople don't, they just want they want the here and now. They want the dollars and the wham, bam, slam, the sale. And truth be told, we're not to, unless you can show somebody that, look, this is about a way of life for you that is ultimately going to be not only very much of a cost savings, but ultimately allow you to and your children and your grandchildren to be in a cleaner environment, making better energy for less money. And if those are the questions and somebody wants to object to that, well, I don't have an answer. I can't respond to that because, how would you? If you're into child sacrifice and you're into dirty air and want to blow things up, okay, that's your business. But I can't argue with that. So
yeah. Well, Bill, it has been a pleasure having you on. I'm sure that we've brought a lot of value to everybody that's here. You want to let everybody know how to get hold of you, and I didn't get the scroll. It's only been down there for, I don't know, 5 minutes or something. I didn't get it going the whole time, but you can go ahead and let them know.
Yes, and I'm happy to talk to people, just general information about solar and how it works and how it might work for them or somebody they know. And my email is pretty quick and easy. It's bill@billconleysolar.solar, bill@billconley.solar, CONLEY, or I can be reached at 209-298-3301. The company that I promote and represent, though I don't work for them, is called Powur, POWUR. And again, the neat part is that we're an online platform, so we do business all over the country. And if you know somebody, not only here locally, but elsewhere around the country that might benefit, again, I would be happy to speak to them. And C. Ray, you've been so generous with your time, and I thank you. I knew of you for a long time before I knew you, and I had a good vibe when I knew of you. Now I have a great vibe because I do know you. And I really I'm honored to be here. So thank you so very much.
Well, I certainly appreciate you being here. We are connected through our BNI group now, and I really appreciate seeing you and hearing your stories every week. If you'd like to come back, I'm sure you can bring some more value as we move forward and be back on the podcast. We would love to have you back. Everybody, Bill Conley, if you're looking for any kind of solar power, he has some answers for you, and interview to find out if Powur is the company for you. Everybody go out and be the sunshine in somebody's rainy day. Remember C-Ray to find your perfect home, and we will see you again real soon. Thank you so much.